I've dug too grave for us, my dear. Things are here. Some kill, some steal, some break your heart. Broken hearts break bones. I've dug too grave for us, my dear. Hi, that's X Extension. I don't know if I've said that right. Revenge, and it just really reminds me of my book, Random Attachment. And I listened to so much emo rap when I was writing this book. Lots of other music as well, but I just think that, you know, emo rap has that fragility that our hearts and our souls are things that break easily, not just romantically, but just by the way we're treated every day. And a lot of angst, teenage angst, is in my book. And I write YA because it's the genre that I feel I resonate with the most, because although I'm 51, I've had, you know, the last 30 years of my life have been mainly happy, and, you know, I'm the mum of 4 kids and I've loved being a mum, and my husband and I had loads of great adventures before, you know, we had kids. And I think of that period of my time between sort of 19 and now as being very happy and stable. But prior to that, I had a very troubled upbringing. You know, nothing mad, like, but it's a story common to lots of people. And sorry if I stumble over my words, but it's to do with my condition. I lose track of what I'm meant to be saying, and my brain doesn't always engage with my mouth, but I'll do my best to get it out. So I changed primary schools 3 times, and that didn't help. I never settled there. I lived in a pub, and all the other kids lived on an estate and hung out in the evenings and at weekends, and they were, you know, a very close-knit group, and I was always on the outskirts of friendship there. And so I felt quite isolated before I even started secondary school. But just like a month before secondary school started, you know, there was a lot of arguing between my parents. I didn't know what they were arguing about, but there was quite a bad atmosphere in the air. And eventually, I'd just been at school, you know, a couple of months when the police came and my dad was arrested. This was like 11 o'clock at night. We had to get out of our beds, and we went to my aunt's house, but the next day we had to go down and we were in emergency accommodation. So just as I was starting school, I had this huge emotional upheaval, which I couldn't talk to anybody about, because I was brought up that you didn't, you know, it was personal. You supported one another. You were, you know, talking about it, my mum would have thought would have been very disloyal. And at sort of 11, 12, I didn't want to upset my mum any more than she was. And it was difficult because my dad had a gambling and alcohol addiction. My parents split up, the kind of family derailed. And at secondary school, I was just like a plum in you know, a barrel of pears, because it was a Chelsea school, church school. It was quite posh. Everybody wore Fred Perry, Accuscutum, had lovely bright loafers on. The girls wore sort of nice pencil skirts, and I had this triangular thing on. And it was just a bad time to have no money, just when I needed things to fit in. And, you know, I just withdrew into myself. I found it hard to reach out to other people, and I felt very excluded at school. And it was nobody's fault. I wasn't bullied. Yeah, I mean, I was chubby, and I was called, there was a lot of name calling, fat. And when it came to picking kids for netball, you know, when you get 2 captains and they pick people, I was always the last person. Nobody really wanted me. And things were just really bad in my home life, and that's very much reflected in my book. My book is fiction, but the emotion in it is just so real. So yeah, I moved around a lot. I had a lot of upheaval. My mum drilled into me I had to keep it private. It was all inside, twisting and turning, and I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Why don't I fit in? And I felt worthless, and I felt the SAS, when I watch Two Dares Wins, they say they're looking for the grey man. It's that person that can be a special agent that, you know, merges into what's going on and can observe everything. And that's what I was. I was just the grey girl, because there was a school reunion which I didn't go to, but a friend did. And she asked people about me and nobody could remember me. So I was at school for like 6 years with these kids and nobody remembered my name or who I was. So I really, you know, my isolation wasn't imagined. I really was the invisible girl. And we didn't have emo then. It was kind of punk and mod and skinheads. And I remember there was this skinhead boy, Anthony, and he was the only skinhead in our class, and he was quite good looking. But in geography one day he challenged the teacher. He got kicked out, and for some reason I wanted to go and see was he okay. So I said I wanted to go to the loo, and he was standing there on the stairwell, and his face was red. He'd been crying, and instead of like turning away and trying to hide that he'd been crying, you know, he made eye contact with me and we looked at each other, and I just knew he needed to be hugged. He needed someone to say, it's okay, look, you're going to get through this. It's not your fault. There's reasons why you're acting out. And I just passed him on the stairs and went to the loo. And I think if I could get that one moment back, you know, I would have pulled him into my arms, because that's what I wanted myself. I wanted someone to tell me it's okay and it's not you. And some people go through all their teens, and that person that they need to give them a hug just isn't there. So yeah, my book is very personal in many ways, and I want teens to read it because I think it will help them realise that so many of us go through these emotions, and we feel fragile and we feel isolated. And you know, I felt I had a lot of things happening, but what I didn't have was I didn't have any question about my sexuality or my identity, and so I was lucky in that way. And I think it is so much harder for kids that do have these issues going on and other people don't understand them and can't give them what they need to feel secure in themselves. And that's it really. So I love emo rap. I listen to it when I write. I love loads of different genres. I have a little playlist for Random Attachment, and I've got one going for Henry Whittle. And I just want to say that you need to talk to adults, you need to talk to other kids. I couldn't talk to anybody. I kept it all inside, apart from I wrote these letters to John Taylor of Duran Duran, because I couldn't keep a diary because my mum would have read it, and you know, that would have just made things worse. So I poured out my heart into these letters to John Taylor, because my friend who lived in South Kensington had seen him going in and out of a house and gave me the address. Now, some poor person who probably isn't John Taylor at all had these weekly letters coming from this girl that was just, you know, in such a dark place. And I don't know if John Taylor ever got those letters, but each time I put it in the post box, I felt a little bit lighter. So it did help. And I think contacting crisis is so important. Don't wait until you feel really, really bleak. Phone crisis just to speak to somebody about, you know, you're feeling depressed or you're feeling isolated, you feel lonely, worthless, all those things. And that's what I've got to say for today. But hang in there if you're having tough times, and I hope that today is a good day for you. Bye.